Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It's our trend unit. Yeah, trendy or cheugy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird word, but we get these every year. There are at least a couple of new words every year that come into being.
Indeed, and of course, these words change over time, so we're going to talk about a new term, and the term is cheugy. And I must admit, as a desperately old man, I had never heard of this term before, but hey, we're open to new things, and I'm sure lots of our listeners out there have known about this word for a long time, but in case you haven't, that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's find out what this is all about. Let's read through the entire contents of our lesson right now. Groovy, bogus, rad, whack, lit, basic. Slang words like these have described what's cool or uncool from the 1970s to now. However, such language trends go through enormous shifts with every generation of young trendsetters. For Americans currently in their teens and early 20s, the term that defines grasping tightly at departed trends is cheugy. Popularized on TikTok, this word identifies an out-of-touch person or fashion, but what qualifies as cheugy is different depending on who you ask. Though cheugy might seem a brand new addition to English slang, the word was coined back in 2013 by a high schooler in Beverly Hills, California. However, it was a viral video on TikTok in early 2021 that brought cheugy into mainstream consciousness, inspiring think pieces in major media outlets. Essentially, it's the opposite of trendy, but for something to be cheugy, it also has to have attained true popularity first. Fancy Starbucks drinks, live, laugh, love posters, Instagram influencers, and Minions memes are often cited as being cheugy. Given all these trends' association with millennials of the early 2010s, their being labeled cheugy has provoked strong feelings. Some have said that cheugy is the latest front in the generational war between millennials and Gen Z. There have also been accusations that cheugy is sexist and classist and tears people down simply for personal preferences. But whatever complicated emotions the word might evoke, it demonstrates the power of language to influence culture and to evolve rapidly with each new generation.
Trendy or cheugy? Cheugy is a new word. So if you looked at it and thought, what does that mean? You're not the only one, cheugy. So it's the new word and it means uncool. So we're going to talk about some of these trendy words that come and go. They're popular for a while and then they are not popular. And sometimes when I hear some people use some of these words, it really dates them. If something dates you, it just means something you're doing, wearing, saying, puts you in the time period when you grew up. And perhaps even tells people when you were a teen or in your young 20s, things like that. But yeah, here are some old words. Groovy. Groovy was used in the 60s, and I hear groovy and I think of my parents, you know, not even, well, no, a little younger than my parents. Groovy. If someone says groovy, you know that they probably were teens in the 60s, 1960s. Bogus. Bogus has been around for a long time. I still hear bogus a lot. If someone says that's bogus, usually to me just means, well, that's wrong or that's false. Well, that's bogus. Rad. I had a friend who was still using rad about 15 years ago. Rad was very cool. It's whack. You've heard whack, right, Tom?
Yeah, if I haven't, I can kind of guess it means something good. That's really cool. That's whack, no?
Oh, for me, whack was bad.
Oh, was it? Okay, so I guess it kind of depends
whack.
Where you're
You know what? I mentioned this earlier. Some of these words have different meanings to different people. So sometimes I will literally ask someone who's talking to me, I haven't done it for a while because it happened in America. Now, is that a positive or a negative? I dated a guy who had lots of slang words, and I was a little older than him, and sometimes I'd say, so is that good or bad? Because sometimes I didn't know. Now we have the Urban Dictionary. So you can look these up and not feel stupid all the time. But people do use these differently. Like Tom just said whack was a good thing. For me, the person I knew who used it a lot, well, that's whack. That's stupid. That's dumb. He'd use it that way. Lit is good. That's lit.
I would have guessed it's good.
Yeah.
Basic, that might be bad, I guess. That means it's kind of simple and not really complicated or something like that.
But it's usually used with females, so got to be careful with some of this stuff. Yeah, I heard it being used by a performer, a celebrity, a couple of weeks ago, and so I looked it up because I thought, how's he using it? Because you're not always sure how people use these words. So slang is very interesting, but it definitely lets you know sometimes what generation people grew up in.
Exactly. So, of course, one that we used to use in the past, bad was kind of lame. Oh, that's really a lame excuse. And then, of course, there's groovy, there's far out, there's heavy. That's stuff from my brother's generation.
Yeah, those are all like the late 60s, early 70s drug days.
Exactly. So again, you kind of have to learn these words depending on who you're talking to. And then we've got hip-hop influence. And lots of people listen to hip-hop, and they've got all sorts of new words that are coming out that people are learning. So sometimes it's just hard to keep track of all the new words they're coming up with to describe something as being cool or being lame. And however, such language trends go through enormous shifts with every generation of young trendsetters. So yeah, words come and then they go. If I'm going to describe something as being far out, man, or heavy, they're going to go, oh, that's like from my grandfather's generation. Boy, are you behind the times.
You're not cool just because you use that word. Yeah, it's kind of fun. You can learn a lot of slang, or at least hear what some of the slang is, if you watch current day TV shows and movies, especially TV, because things change so fast. So it says here, a lot of these words describe things that were cool or uncool from the 1970s to now. I don't think they even had slang that much before the 60s, the 1960s.
Yeah, they just said great or bad or good. Simple words like that.
There were no cool words back then, guys. So these language trends go through enormous shifts or changes with every generation of young trend setters. If you're a trendsetter, guys, it means you're somebody who other people are looking to set the trends, and then they follow those trends that are set. Now, we know this happens a lot in fashion. Nowadays, there are a lot of people, especially on social media, who will be trend setters. You watch and see what they wear and say and do, and you want to copy them because you think they're cool. For Americans currently in their teens and early 20s, the term cheugy defines the term that defines grasping tightly at departed trends. Oh, so you're holding on to things that are no longer popular. If you're doing that, guys, you're cheugy. So you don't want to do that.
Right, so if you're kind of stubborn, I guess, and you're from an earlier generation and you're still using those terms even though they're out of date, then you could be described as cheugy or maybe old-fashioned. That's what they would have called people back when I was a kid. Oh, you're so old-fashioned, you're so behind the times. And popularized on TikTok, this word identifies an out-of-touch person or fashion. But what qualifies as cheugy is different depending on who you ask. So indeed, this word, I guess, came from TikTok. That's a social media platform. And it identifies an out-of-touch person. A person who's behind the times. Somebody who needs to, read some modern novels or watch some some more modern TV shows and stop watching things like F Troop or Leave It to Beaver or stuff like that. That stuff is really behind behind the times. You got to, bring yourself up to modern times here. But if you don't, if you're kind of old-fashioned, you'll be described as cheugy or out of touch. And again, what qualifies as cheugy is different depending on who you ask. Qualify here, that's a verb that just means you reach certain qualifications. You have certain things that you've done that allow you to be accepted into a certain different kind of situation.
Yeah, so, people use these differently. What qualifies as cheugy for one person doesn't for another. We're going to talk more about this, though. First, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher, of course, who is anything but cheugy.
听众朋友，大家好，我是 Anna。我们今天要来介绍一个抖音流行语，叫做 cheugy。不晓得你有没有听过 ？cheugy 是什么意思啊 ？cheugy 其实就是不酷。uncool 或者是过时了，老派的意思。好，不管是怎么样呢，我们会发现呢，其实语言呢，在每一代当中都会有一些常用的，然后呢，到下一代呢就被丢弃了，这就是所谓的俚语。好，那我们当然呢，在同样第一段的地方啊，有告诉我们，其实每一个世代啊，年轻的这种潮流引领者，这种语言风潮啊，对于他们来说，其实都是经历很大的转变。所以，其实，在第3句当中啊，我们今天这个文章设计成克漏字，在第一格有4个动词变语。如果根据文意来判断的话呢，这题答案选 C 是比较正确的。那句子如果你看不太清楚的话，我们可以看到，在第一格之后 enormous shifts 指的是重大的改变，后面的 with 介系词啊，它有随着的意思，随着跟随，随着每一代的年轻的潮流创造者，其实会经历很多的改变。比如说我们现在看到的抖音的这个词，这个所谓的 cheugy。那么对于现在10几20岁的年轻的这个美国人来说啊，如果我们要讲过时这个字，就叫做我们刚刚说的 cheugy。不过其实它是在抖音上面很流行啦，就是所谓的老派的意思。而后面的第5句呢，则是一个分词构句。我们一开始就看到了一个 PP popularized。这个 PP 怎么会突然出现在句首呢？其实真正的主词我们说过，看到分词构句要找主词，就往后面找逗点之后。This word 是主词，所以这个字哪一个字呢？也就是 cheugy 这个字。我们回过头来看一下分词构句呢，如果根据文意我们推断，它用的是 because， 因为这个字啊在 TikTok 上很红，所以 TikTok 其实它讲的就是什么什么点点点。句子原本应该是 because this word 也就是 cheugy is popularized on TikTok， 连接词 because 省略，那么 this word 跟逗点之后主词也一样，主词删掉，剩下的 be 动词 being 本来就是简化，它没有特别的意义，只是功能性的，所以 being 也删掉。这个分词构句就出现啦，因为它在 TikTok 上很红，所以它指的就是什么。但是如果你要讲 cheugy 到底是什么意思，当然是要看你问的人是什么，才能够决定那个人事物是不是非常 cheugy。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson. We're going to talk about whether something is trendy, cool, or cheugy, out of date, old-fashioned, etc. Again, the word is cheugy, and it was popularized on TikTok, and it identifies an out-of-touch person, an old fogey, someone from a previous generation that still holds on to those weird words that they used back then and just won't update themselves. They won't run with the times, basically. They're out of touch, they're old-fashioned, and yes, indeed, though, it is ambiguous because what qualifies as cheugy is different from person to person, from generation to generation. So now we're going to move on to the next paragraph. It says, though cheugy might seem a brand new addition to English slang, the word was coined back in 2013 by a high schooler in Beverly Hills, California. So yeah, as I I said before our program, this is the first time I've ever heard of this word, but it's actually not that new. It actually came out way back in 2013, so that's almost 10 years ago, and it was coined or invented by a high school student in Beverly Hills, California. So you know that this kid is probably from a very wealthy background.
Yeah, his parents probably work in Hollywood, I was just going to guess here. It takes a while for things to go viral. Once they go viral, something becomes more and more widely known by other people. So it does take a little while for these things to go viral. So 2013, if something was coined, it just means it was invented. Someone used it in a particular way for the first time. So we're going to give the credit to a high schooler from Beverly Hills for coming up with this term. However, it was a viral video on TikTok in early 2021 that brought cheugy into mainstream consciousness. Aha. So it wasn't until someone did a TikTok video this year that people were really aware of this word. When you talk about mainstream, it just means where the majority of the population is aware of something, right? To their consciousness, they're aware of it. So mainstream, we'll often hear people talk about mainstream music or mainstream media, or anything that's mainstream is just what you typically can get your hands on day to day or see. So once this became more mainstream and went viral, it inspired some of these major media outlets to write articles about them. We're calling them think pieces. A think piece is just a journalist's way to talk about something that they feel strongly about and kind of explain the background of it and what it might mean. So these are think pieces that came out in major media outlets. It could have been like the Slate, a magazine that you can get online, or some other type of media. It could be maybe a cable station. But if it's a think piece, it's usually written down and you'll see it in some sort of magazine or journal.
Sounds like an informal term for an editorial, basically. But indeed, this term inspired think pieces and editorials in major media outlets. Essentially, or basically, it's the opposite of trendy. So if something's trendy, it's 流行, as you say in Chinese, it's popular. So here the word essentially, basically, it means something opposite. It's the opposite of trendy, cheugy, trendy. But for something to be cheugy, it also has to have attained true popularity first. So to attain means to reach something, to be able to get to a certain level of qualifications. And in this particular case, it was supposed to be popular first, okay? And then later it's considered cheugy once it's out of style.
Yeah, so here are some examples of things that used to be very popular, but now are considered cheugy, and that's fancy Starbucks drinks, where people pay $4 for US dollars for a fancy coffee. Here's some other examples. The Live, Laugh, Love posters. Those were popular for a while. Not anymore. They're cheugy. If you have them, take them down. Instagram influencers, those are people who are paid to, say their opinion about a product. Sometimes these people are celebrities to begin with, and other times they've just become popular because they have some sort of great personality, or maybe they're beautiful. Some of the girls that are influencers are just really pretty. So those are cheugy now. So it's not cool to be an Instagram influencer anymore. And those Minions memes are often cited as being cheugy. Minions was a movie put out by Hollywood. It had those wacky cartoon characters who were really fun. My brother and his wife dressed up as Minions about 10 years ago for Halloween. A meme is just when you take something and you turn it, it's a graphic, and you write some sort of words on it, and then it goes viral. That's a meme. And these are all examples of being cheugy. If you cite something as being, it just means you are mentioning that, you're stating that you feel that this is something that's cheugy. We often use cite to talk about our sources when we write research papers, your citations. That's the full term there. Cite is the verb form. Your citations would just mean, oh, where did you get that idea? Or where did that quote come from? You have to write down all of your citations. You have to cite where you got your information from.
Yep, you have to list your references, basically. So, yes, these are some examples that are mentioned or cited or indicated as being cheugy. Maybe you've heard some of these things. They're all considered out of date now. Now, given all these trends' association with millennials of the early 2010s, their being labeled cheugy has provoked strong feelings. So, considering that all these trends were associated with millennials in the early 2010s, well, therefore, their being labeled cheugy has provoked strong feelings. So, again, if you consider that these trends were associated with millennials at this certain period of time, then if you call them cheugy, that might get some people kind of upset. It will provoke or solicit or bring about strong feelings. So, of course, millennials, that's an older generation now. I suppose the millennials are now in their 30s or so. And the generation now that's, coming of age, high schoolers and the people in college now and getting their first jobs, that would be Gen Z or Generation Z.
Right. So, it sounds like there's going to be a war between generations here. So, if you were one of those millennials, you probably thought all those things I just listed were still pretty cool. No, not according to a younger generation. So, that's why they say here that some have said that cheugy is the latest front in the generational war between millennials and Gen Z. So the front here they're talking about is a war front, not any other front, guys. So you have to know that they're referencing this word because they're talking about not a real war, but a figurative war. And a front was just one area where a battle was taking place in a big war, right? So one particular area. So this is just one way that these Gen Zers are getting back at the millennials, and they consider the millennials to be old-fashioned and really uncool themselves, I'm sure. There have also been accusations that cheugy is sexist and classist and tears people down simply for personal preferences. An accusation is when someone accuses somebody else of doing something wrong or bad. So they claim that someone has done something illegal, perhaps, or wrong. And the accuse would be the verb form. Accusation is the noun. So these are accusations. Now, if something is said to be sexist, it means it's targeting either, the female or the male, who knows. And classist would refer to your level in society, whether you're upper class, middle class, or lower class. So if something tears people down, Tom, what does that mean, to tear someone down?
Just kind of reduces their status. It makes them feel bad and things like that. So, of course, if people are described as cheugy, they get kind of sensitive. Hey, that's sexist, that's classist, that's racist, etc., etc. And, of course, that's not a way to put someone down because of their personal preferences, but whatever complicated emotions the word might evoke, it demonstrates the power of language to influence culture and to evolve rapidly with each new generation. So yeah, whether people are offended or not, this word still tells us that language has power and that it influences culture, and then these words evolve and change over time. In this particular case, they evolve rapidly. They change rapidly with each new generation. So yeah, there's going to be some new words pretty soon in the future, but we just don't know what those words are going to be. It's kind of interesting to guess what they will be. Maybe you might be the next person to invent a trendy word, and you'll make a ton of money.
Cool.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
当然啦，虽然 cheugy 是一个英文的俚语，一个新的名词嘛，不过到底是谁创的呢？它是2013年啊，早就已经在这个美国的加州比佛利山庄一个高中生所创的。不过是因为2021年啊，当时呢在抖音上面有一个爆红的这个影片，所以 cheugy 才成为了一个主流观点，然后有很多的媒体啊就有一些深入探讨的文章。我们在第二段的地方要特别注意一下第二句哦。第二句有一个强调用的一个句型，强调用的句型 It was 后面的 that 这3个字要抓出来。中文的意思就是2021年 TikTok 上面的一段影片才把什么什么带出来。 that 后面出现2个动词哦，第一个动词是 brought， 第二个动词也就是第3格本来是 and inspired。好，我们强调的是主词，就是2021年抖音上面的这段影片带出了 cheugy 这个字，而且还引发了很多深入探讨的文章。所以第2个动词，也就是第3题 and 省略，我们把 inspired 变成了 inspiring， 它是一个连接词，省略的分词构句。好，所以第3题我们答案选D。好，那么之后呢，就变成 cheugy 这个字可以指的是一些像是星巴克饮料啦，或什么小小兵的迷因图啊，这些就是已经不是很红的东西。好，不过因为啊，这个2021年的这个千禧世代 Y 世代啊，跟后面这个 Z 世代啊，也就是大概2010年左右出生的这个 Z 世代，其实这个2代呢，就是因为 cheugy 这个字，后来又产生了一些新的一些冲突。因为有些人觉得 cheugy 是很性别歧视啦、阶级歧视啦，或者是因为个人的喜好就去诋毁他人，所以对这个字呢，其实在2个世代当中就有产生出蛮多的一些冲突。可我们在最后第3段的地方，可能要特别注意一下，在第1句，当然我们要特别注意一下4个选项，4个选项当中啊，特别第一的这个选项 given 不是给予的意思哦，它指的是有鉴于什么什么，考虑到什么什么。 given 后面可以直接加名词，或者是加个 that 再加子句。在这一句话当中，最后这一段的第1句，它是一个介系词的用法，因为后面提到的是 all these trends association，关键在连结，它跟 Y 世代所有所连结的。那么逗点之后 they're being labeled cheugy， 也就是 Y 世代1980、1990年代出生，他们被标成 cheugy 这件事情就产生了强烈的情绪。好，不过不管怎么样，语言都是一直变化的，所以我们也不用太贞洁这一些俚语。重点是啊，我们要正确的使用语言才是比较重要的哦。我们下次见，我是安娜，拜拜。
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again next time. And yeah, don't be a square, don't be cheugy. Try to be hip and try to be groovy. That's what we want you to be. That brings us to the end of our program. Please join us again next time. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.